today's theater, we take the importance of the stage director for granted. Historically speaking, however, the director is one of the newest artists to contribute to the art of theater. It wasn't actually until the 20th century that the director as we know it becomes a fixture in theater. Before this time, the plays were often staged by the playwright. Even more often, the leading actor of the theater company would direct the rest of the company around his performance. As theater became more complicated and staging a play involved more and more new technology, there came a need for someone with an overall vision to bring all the elements together. Hence, the evolution of the stage director. In fact, the evolution of the stage director was occurring about the same time that American theater was coming into its own. As a result, the importance of the American director was an important part of the evolution of American theater. The first significant figure who can be seen as a stage director as we know it today was Gustin Daily. Daly's rise was no doubt required as a result of the incredible visual spectacles he included in the plays that he wrote. Daly became so successful at directing his melodramatic spectacles that he was able to purchase his own theaters both in New York and in London, England. Daly was an autocrat in nature and controlled every gesture and line delivery of his actors. His approach to directing moved the art of acting toward a more realistic style of acting. He had an hands-on approach to the crafting of the sets, lights, and special effects for which his theaters would become famous. Some of the most famous melodramatic scenes in American theater history were written and staged by Gustin Daily. His play, Under the Gaslight, was the first play to feature a character tied to a railroad track as a train came roaring toward him. His play, The Red Scarf, is the first time we see a character who is tied to a log heading toward a buzzsaw, only to be rescued at the last minute. Daly also directed plays that have included burning buildings, thunderstorms, and stage battles. While Daly's stage direction steered American theater towards a more realistic style of presentation, there can be no doubt that his productions were still melodramatic in nature. It isn't until the close of the 19th century that we see a stage director who clearly marks the move away from melodrama toward a more realistic style of theater. This is the famous American stage director, David Belasco. Belasco began his theater career in San Francisco, where he was born, by staging melodramas. He was a notoriously hard-working and industrious man of the theater. His greatest contribution to the American theater is perhaps the institution of what has been referred to as scenic realism. Belasco was unimpressed by the theatrical tradition of painting scenery on drops and raising and lowering the drop to reveal an interior or exterior setting. Belasco wanted the set on the stage to resemble a real location. He created box sets on stage and included real furniture and properties. Audiences marveled at the realistic settings that he constructed. Belasco was also an innovator of stage lighting. He removed the footlights from his stage that created unnatural shadows and hung lights above the actors to create more natural shadings. He experimented with colored glass to control the color of lights that were reflected off the surface of his sets. This is an early version of the lighting gels that we will take a look at in the next unit. While the style of acting in Belasco's plays was still melodramatic, the realistic setting and stage effects required an adjustment on the part of his actors so that they presented a more realistic mode of performance. In these respects, David Belasco was clearly one of the most important transitional figures in American theater between the style of melodrama and the style of realism. That wraps up our discussion of early American theater. It's time to go to your task. We'll see you in the next unit.